God's people in cities. This week we're looking at the messages that Jesus had to the remaining 6 churches. Last week we ended up with the church of Ephesus. Today we're moving on with the church of Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea.
We started a new study on the book of Revelation, and if you haven't followed through, you may want to start from the beginning. Jesus sent 7 messages to John that were addressed to specific churches at the time, but they also carry an important message to us as well. The messages share a common structure. It identifies the recipient of the message, then mentions Jesus as the sender, but it presents Jesus in a specific and relevant way to the specific case. Then there is an appraisal about the church and some recommendation, and it concludes with an appeal and some promises. It's fascinating how personal Jesus is. There are no big generalizations on where we should be all the same no matter what. Jesus cares about our personal struggles, about personal journeys, and he's always relevant to the specific situation.
Interestingly, the lesson starts by combining the messages to Smyrna and Philadelphia in one part of the lesson, due to the reason that Jesus did not rebuke any of them. The first one, Smyrna, represented the church period immediately after the apostolic time, where persecution was initiated by Diocletian, and thanks to the Edict of Milan issued by Constantine, it was stopped. A prophecy of 10 days reflected the 10-year period of persecution between 303 to 313 AD, where the period of Philadelphia represented the time of the 18th and 19th century, the Great Revival where the Great Revival and the Protestantism happened, and the Word of God was preserved and elevated.
You do need to read each message and spend some time pondering on it. Each expression is so deep and full of meaning. Maybe it's because there were not enough days in the week to look at all the churches separately, and this is why the author combined the persecuted and the faithful church together. But it's also interesting that the encouragement for the persecuted church was to remain faithful. And for the faithful church, it was the promise for support and final reward. It's a journey.
Christ's message to the Pergamum was a message of faithfulness. Living in a city of strong pagan representation, of strict worship to the cult of the emperor, some Christians fell into the temptation to compromise with their faith, to lose their consistency in what's wrong and what's right. Also interesting is the detail there that Satan had his throne there, and also that it's the city where Satan lives. So the message to the Pergamum was clear: repent, otherwise I will come soon to you. By the way, the message to Thyatira was very similar to Pergamum in respect to the pagan practices. However, it was much more amplified with sexual immorality and eating food sacrificed to idols. And this did not mean anything else but change from within the church. The salvation through Christ was replaced by other means, like tradition, sacred relics, or even works regarded as a means of salvation.
Similar messages to both churches, but it seems like there is also a progression from compromises in Pergamum to corruption in Thyatira. We all know what compromises do. It could have very reasonable explanation at first, but the path is quickly destructive.
The city of Sardis was a safe one, up on a hill, hard to approach and difficult to overtake. Just like Christians who had a great experience with Christ, learned their theology very well, the doctrines and the good practices, but then became spiritually dead. No life in them, no sparkle, no more mission, no more present experience with God. And Jesus' advice is, wake up, strengthen what remains, remember what you have received and heard. I don't know, but it feels like so much like what's happening today around me.
When we start living on memories, or everything becomes a theory, it's spiritual death. The advice is to remember. But what if we don't have what to remember? Maybe we never had it. A living practical experience with Jesus makes all the difference.
Probably you were anxious to hear this one the most, the message to Laodicea. With one word, self-sufficient. Don't need Jesus, don't need help, don't need anything, by the way. I can do it myself. And at the same time, with the first loss or challenge in our life, we ask the question, where is God? Why is this happening to me? Does he really care about me? We are not authentic. We are wannabe, but lacking the first love. We do have faith, but no substance. We like to disconnect from Jesus, to disconnect from friends, to disconnect from problems. We like to just shut them down like they don't exist. Where Jesus wants to come in, to help us through, not to help us close our eyes. He wants to be intimate, and we want privacy. We have to choose. We either want it all with Christ, or we better choose the world, live the life like others do. We are tasteless in a spiritual sense. We can't commit, and we cannot persist in our faith. Do we want to be real? Do we want to have an experience with God? This is what the message to Laodicea for me is all about.
We have it all figured out. Yet we forgot what it means to have a relationship with Christ. He is at the door and knocking. If we open, it would be an amazing gathering. Join us next week when we look at chapters 4 and 5 with the lesson, The Enthronement of the Lamb.